Galway plc manufactures and sells a single product. The following budgeted stroke actual information is provided in relation to the production of this product. Right? We've been given the selling price, direct materials cost per unit, direct labor cost per unit, and the variable production overheads cost per unit. Details for the months of May and June are as follows. Okay, so in May, we are producing 500 units of product A, and we are selling 300 units of product A, because they'll usually give you two months. Okay. In June, we're producing 380 units of product A, and we're selling 500 units of product A. Fixed production overheads are budgeted at $4,000 per month and are absorbed on a unit basis. The normal level of production is budgeted at 400 units per month. Yeah. So with other costs here, fixed selling 4,000 per month, fixed administration 2,000 per month, variable sales commission 5% of sales revenue. They tell us here there was no opening inventory of product A at the start of May. All right, so we have to, the question is here, make an absorption cost. Oh, find the profit using for both months using absorption costing, and find the profit for both months using marginal costing. Then do a profit reconciliation. Okay. Usually this is how these questions are paired up. So today we're going to focus on the absorption costing. We're going to do for the month of May. Then June is for you to attempt. Okay. We're going to go for the month of May. All right. So these are the steps, okay, that you need to follow. Step one, just like in marginal costing, find the closing inventory. Okay. Find the closing inventory. Okay. So we're focusing on the month of May. Closing inventory, remember, is your opening inventory plus how many units you produce, okay, minus how many units sold. Okay. So they told us there's no opening inventory in May. Okay. Then in May, we are planning to produce 500 units. And they were planning to sell 300 units. So here you're going to do 0 plus 500 minus 300. And you're going to get 500 minus 300. That is 200 units. That is the closing inventory for May. Any questions, colleagues, before I move further? That is step one. Okay. If you are given a closing inventory value, then you don't need to do step one. Okay. Yes. We'll go to the next step. For June now, I'll make you calculate for June by yourselves. All right. For June, you need to tabulate by yourselves. All right. Step two. get overhead absorption rate and determine if, oh, actually before that, oh yeah, get overhead absorption rate and determine if there is under or over absorption. Okay, that is step 2. Okay, so our overhead absorption rate, remember, budgeted overhead divided by the budgeted level of activity. Okay, please. Budgeted overhead divided by the budgeted level of activity. In the question here, they told us fixed production overheads are budgeted at $4,000 per month. Budgeted level of activity. The normal level of production is budgeted at 400 units per month. So this is the information we need. Okay, 4,000 divided by 400 units. So our overhead absorption rate, which is basically just our fixed overhead per unit. Okay. Remember, overhead absorption rate is just your fixed overhead cost per unit. Okay, colleagues? Fixed overhead cost per unit. Okay, so it's 10 euros. Since here they're using euros. So let's see. 10 euros. Do we have the symbol for euros here? I'll just put 10 euros. Right? This is the overhead absorption rate or the fixed overhead cost per unit. And this is what we're going to include when we're tabulating our cost per unit. Okay. Any questions before now we find out if there's over or under absorption? Okay, so next we check if there's under and over, if there was any under or over absorption over for the overheads. So colleagues, important point. If they do not give you an actual fixed cost to compare with, okay, then you are going to assume that this budgeted fixed cost is the actual cost that you incur that month. Okay, I repeat one more time. If they do not put an actual fixed cost that has been incurred, an actual versus fixed overhead that has been incurred, then that budgeted fixed production overhead will be assumed to be the one that actually occurred for that month. You budgeted it and that month that's what the cost was actually. Okay, colleagues. Yes. So our actual fixed production overhead is going to equal to our budgeted one, 4,000. We say, okay, the month of May, the fixed production overhead was 4,000 kwacha. Okay, so that's our actual overhead. Then our absorbed overhead. Remember, overhead absorption rate multiplied by the activity level. The activity level is the number of units produced. Since we absorbed our overheads with the number of units, so our absorbed overhead, the overhead we expect. This is the overhead cost that we're expecting. Okay. Yes. So our overhead absorption rate is 10 kwacha. For the month of May, we have produced 500 units. Okay, this 500 here is the 500 units produced here. Okay, we produced 500 units, so we expect our overhead fixed production overhead cost to be, so you say 500 times 10, 5,000. Okay, yes. So now our absorbed overhead is greater than the actual overhead, meaning we've overestimated. Okay? Because the absorbed overhead is 5,000, the actual overhead is 4,000. So since the absorbed overhead, the overhead that we expected to incur for that month is greater than the actual overhead that we incurred for that month, we have over absorbed. So when comparing these two colleagues, always put the absorbed overhead on top and the actual overhead down, so that when you subtract, when you get a positive value, you just know that you've over absorbed. Because sometimes the order doesn't matter, but for simplicity's sake, I like to put the absorbed on top and the actual below. All right. So that when I get a positive value, I've over absorbed, I've overestimated. If I get a negative value, I've under absorbed. Okay, colleagues? Yes. So we've determined we've over absorbed the overheads by 1,000 euros. Any questions before I move to step 3? Step 3, get the cost per unit. Okay, so cost per unit, remember I would say this is absorption costing, full costing. So have you seen here for the cost per unit, direct materials, 8 euros. Direct labor, 5 euros. Variable production overhead per unit, $3. Fixed production overhead per unit, which is our overhead absorption rate. Okay, this is our OAR, which we tabulated there. That is the OAR, or the OAR. Yeah, the OAR. So we just we get the total 8 plus 5 plus 3 plus 10. We get 26 euros per unit. Okay. So once you've done these 3 preliminary steps, you've got your closing inventory, your overhead absorption rate, you find out if there was over and under absorption, and you've got the cost per unit. Once you've done these 3 steps, you can now make the profit statement. Okay. It's similar to the marginal costing profit statement. The only difference is here now there's no contribution. Okay, there is no contribution. Okay. So, first things first, sales revenue. Okay. Selling price per unit multiplied by number of units sold. Right, Mr. Casono, remember last time this question which we posed that never multiply the selling price with the number of units produced. Okay. Yes. So sales revenue, selling price per unit multiplied by number of units sold. This 300 is coming from here. Okay. This 300 is coming from there. That 50 is coming from here. 50 times 300. 15,000 euros. Okay, next we get our cost over sales. All right. So there's no opening inventory. Okay, there's no opening inventory. So that's why I haven't included opening inventory here. If there was opening inventory, would have valued it at least 26 euros per unit. Okay, colleagues. But for the month of June, you're going to have opening inventory. Okay, so when you're making the profit statement for the month of June, you will need to include opening inventory here. So our production cost, all right, 26 euros our cost per unit, our full cost per unit. This 26 here is this 26 here. This 500 units, it's coming from here. 500 units produced. So 26 times 500, 13,000 euros. All right, 13,000 euros. Now we need to subtract our closing inventory. All right. The closing inventory is also valued at the full cost per unit, 26 there. This 200 is coming from here. These 200 units we tabulated. 26 times 200, 5,200. Okay. So 13,000 minus 5,200, our cost of sales is 7,800. Now, colleagues, remember, keep in mind, we overabsorbed, okay? We overabsorbed and brought this 10 10 euros per unit. We included here in the cost of per unit. So this overabsorbed overhead here, that through the rate, because you overabsorb through the rate, it has found itself in these costs here. So meaning this cost of sales is inflated because we've overabsorbed. Okay, the cost of sales is inflated. All right. But remember the adjustment, I said we're going to do it with the profit. So since the cost of sales is inflated, when we get our gross profit, 15,000 minus 7,800, we have a gross profit of 7,200. So this, since the cost of sales is inflated, the gross profit is deflated. Okay. So the adjustment we need to make to the gross profit due to this over absorption is you're going to add the over absorbed overheads. This 1,000 here is coming from here. Okay, this is what we're going to use for the adjustment for the gross profit. Since we over absorbed, our cost of sales inflated. And when your cost of sales increases, your gross profit is going down. So you need to add the over-absorbed overheads. Okay. So this deflated gross profit plus this adjustment of the over-absorbed overheads, 7,200 plus 1,000, we get 8,200 as our adjusted profit. Okay. Yes. Now we can deduct the period costs. Okay. Fixed selling and admin. This 2,000 is coming from here. Fixed selling or fixed admin. Fixed admin, $2,000. Fixed selling, $4,000. All right. Variable sales commission, 5%. Okay, over 5% over the sales revenue, 15,000. This 15,000 is coming from here. So you get 5% of this 15,000, 750. So you add the fixed admin, fixed selling, variable sales, 2,000 plus 4,000 plus 750, 6,750. Okay. So our net profit is going to be 8,200 minus 6,750, 1,450 euros.